All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Let's go ahead and sit. If you want to take a moment to settle into the body, just come home to presence. You can let this next half hour be a time when you just let all your worries go. They'll be there later for you. And just set them aside for now. You might start by feeling the body. Perhaps the feet or the thighs where they contact the cushion. Noticing what's there. The pressure, tingling, warm. And just letting that be present. You might let that awareness spread all throughout the legs. Just noticing what's there. When the mind wanders away, very gently bring it back. There's no need to force it. Just be very gentle. And if you like, you might let awareness continue to be aware of the legs and also spread to the torso. Just noticing what's there too. Just letting those sensations arise and pass all on their own. And if you like, you might settle into the body and let awareness know the whole body. All of the sensations of the body, from the head to the toes. vibration, temperature, pressure, movement. Just let them be known. No need to do anything about them. Try and get them to be a particular way. Just let them arise and pass, all on their own. The mind will inevitably get lost in story and depart from being awareness. And when it returns, perhaps you can celebrate that moment of mindfulness. Be kind to yourself. Perhaps thank the mind for returning, for coming back to this practice. If you'd like to make one further expansion, you can let the mind go from resting in awareness of the body to resting in awareness of all phenomena that arise and pass away. Feelings, sound, smell, thought, vision. Just be aware of all phenomena. You don't need to do anything with them. Simply be aware. You can come and go as it please. In these last few minutes, you might simply let go of all doing. Just be awareness itself. Nothing to do, no one to be, just awareness. It's nice to see you all. Damon, you. Hi, Dave. Hi. So last week I started talking about what the path of practice looks like. And I think I'll recap a little bit since there are some new people here. I started at the very beginning. I started when awareness attaches to a body and a mind, sometime in the womb. And I talked about how that's probably a pretty pleasant experience. Birth comes along and birth adds unpleasantness to the experience. Just by virtue of having a body, we have hunger and we have physical pain and we have sickness. And the mind has a natural tendency to move towards pleasantness, but an infant has no capability to do so. And it develops this capability by using sanya, which is conceptualization, kind of breaking the world and breaking experience into pieces, saying this part of experience is this thing and has this sort of characteristic, and this part of experience is a different thing and has different characteristics. And through that process, it learns about the world and it gains knowledge about how things work. And part of that is gaining a sense of self. Self is an outgrowth of sanya. And I talked about how that it kind of solidifies as you get older, and the sense of self tends to get stronger. And at some point, you notice suffering, and you want to find a way out of suffering, and perhaps find the Dhamma. If you find the Dhamma, you practice the Eightfold Path. We talked about the importance of starting a daily practice as a way to make headway against this wind of the world that blows us away from enlightenment and back towards the wheel of samsara. We talked about how often in practice there's a phase where you need to kind of generate a stable and positive sense of self. It's pretty hard to wake up from a sense of self that's fractured and painful, so you often need to do a lot of healing. And after that happens, there can be a period of insight where you start to see through that story that you're telling about yourself. And that's kind of where I left off last week. And I want to continue on from there and finish out what practice might look like all the way up to enlightenment. And we can think about the remainder of the path in two ways. We can think of it in terms of the path metaphor we've been using as a series of milestones that you achieve or you get to, or like things that you do along the way to enlightenment. And you can also think about it in a way of, or as a way of letting go of understandings that we have. So I'll use both of those ways of looking at this. The path metaphor is often talked about as the path of enlightenment. And so in the Theravada model, which is what I'm familiar with, there's 4 milestones on the way to enlightenment. They're called path moments. And path moments they're akin to insights in that they're a change in your understanding of the world. So you understand the world differently after you have one of these, but they're different in that the magnitude of the change is much different. Path moments are things that will radically change your outlook on life. The other difference between insights and path moments is that path moment is something special. An insight can be triggered by anything, but a path moment is a moment where the mind perceives nibbana. So that's something quite special. So the other way of looking at things, the way of letting go, or the way of looking at the path as a series of things series of understandings that you let go of, the model you can use for that is called the 10 fetters. And so the 10 fetters are, you can call them beliefs, but they're not really conscious beliefs that live in your conscious understanding. They're beliefs that go all the way down deep in your unconscious, and kind of in your psyche. And the reason why this is a helpful model, or one reason why this is a helpful model, is that we already have the understanding in us that is needed for enlightenment. The sense of self is what gets in the way of that understanding that's already here. And so it's helpful to think of the path as letting go of the sense of self, or letting go of the fetters. And the reason why I started the talk about the path of practice all the way at the beginning is that there's a period of time in our life when we have this understanding. We have this understanding of moving through the world without a sense of self. And that's when we're a very young child. And that patterning is with us now as adults. It's kind of papered over by the sense of self, but it's still here. And when the sense of self goes, that patterning is available to us, and we can move through the world without a sense of self, which is what an enlightened mind does. So the progression there is, a young child has no sense of self and no understanding of the world. And then an adult uses sanya to gain understanding of the world and also a sense of self. But the enlightened mind keeps the understanding of the world and lets go of the sense of self. And so that's kind of the progression. So those are the two models that I'm going to use as I talk about the rest of the path. And the first of these path moments, it's called first path, but it's also often referred to as stream entry. When the mind takes nibbana as an object for the first time, 3 fetters fall away. And in my mind, one of these is more important than the others. Sakkaya ditthi, which is the understanding of the self as something kind of permanent and stable. And that falls away. And this understanding of ourselves as a separate object, it's like a mirror with a crack in it. You can never fully see it the same way, and you might still use that understanding of the world to kind of move around in the world and interact with people, but you can never fully believe in it. And that kind of sets up a kind of uncomfortable place for the mind to be in. Last week I talked about the sense of self or the understanding of self as a necessary part of kind of learning to be adult and moving around in the world, because it's a stable viewpoint for the mind. It's a viewpoint for the mind to orient itself with respect to the world. And stream entry makes it so you can't fully be comfortable with that, because you've seen the untruth of that. And so you're in this kind of uncomfortable position where you have two views that are contradicting each other, and that sets up a need for it to be resolved. So you have this kind of a little bit of pressure impelling you to move on and to see more of the truth of things. I understand it as like having a pebble in your shoe, right? It's not a comfortable feeling, and you can move forward with that, but you don't like it, and you're going to have to stop and take care of it eventually. And so when you see this, we have many behaviors that are just kind of unconscious and sort of reactive patterns that we have. And many of these patterns are held up by that sense of self. And when that sense of self goes away, many of those patterns of behavior simply vanish. And many of what's left are not steady and stable and can be seen through pretty easily. So there can be quite a bit of behavior change, like when stream entry happens, and sometimes that can be uncomfortable. Sometimes there can be a feeling of the world not being stable, just because so much is different and so much is new. There can also be great release of happiness and joy. Just this great weight has been lifted off your shoulders. So all these emotions may take some time to kind of sort themselves out, maybe a few weeks or a few months or something. But when that resolves, you're left with a life that has much less dukkha in it. I will make up numbers, but you could have a life with 20, 30, 50, 80% less dukkha, just from that one moment of clear seeing. It can be that powerful. And the two other fetters that fall away at stream entry are doubt, vicikiccha. The way I understand that is simply the power of seeing and the power of the change that happens is kind of undeniable proof of the Dhamma. And the last one that falls away is attachment to rites and rituals, silabata paramasa. I think we do less of that kind of in our day and age, and perhaps there was more of that in the past, but that what happened was just a clear seeing of the true nature of reality. It wasn't due to you necessarily doing any particular practice or venerating any particular deity or being in any particular tradition. It was just a clear seeing of the world. So that falls away too. Second path is maybe not quite so dramatic. No fetters fully fall away at second path, but the two that are relevant here are passion for sense pleasures, which is kamaraga, and hatred, which is padika. And those two taken together, in my mind, they constitute the sense of self that deals with liking and disliking. So all the things that you like or dislike are kind of outgrowths of these. And what happens here is not that they fall away, but they are, the term that's often used is that they're weakened. But the way I understand that is that you see the cost of them clearly. You see the cost of the dukkha that arises from them clearly. And you understand that there's no point in doing that. And so that understanding is not strong enough for them to fall away, but I've been using the metaphor of the wheel of samsara as a hamster wheel, right? You run on the hamster wheel and you aren't fully satisfied, and the only thing you know how to do is run faster to try and get what you want. And second path is clearly seeing that hamster wheel for what it is. It's not going to bring you lasting happiness. So you're not fully off yet, but you see it clearly. And third path is when they do drop away clearly or fully. They simply do not occur again. And this is a pretty special thing that happens. You think of third path as a death. This sense of self we have around liking and disliking is quite strong, and I think for many people, well, I won't say that, but I think for some people at least, that's the bulk of their dukkha. And so this understanding that they have of, I am this person who likes and doesn't like all this stuff. It simply falls away, and that is a metaphorical death. If you've heard Buddhism referred to as practice for death, this is one of the reasons why that statement is true. And so up until this point, somebody has been moving through the world, understanding themselves as a sense of self, or as a separate being, as a being with desires and with wants and desires. And at this point, that falls away, and what you are left with is the understanding that I am not a separate being. I am nothing that arises in awareness. I am nothing that arises or passes away. I am simply awareness. And awareness itself is not something that is ever directly experienced. And the reason why this is so powerful is that when we try and define ourselves as a sense of self, as this body or this mind or these likes and dislikes, those are all things that are impermanent. And so when we try and make it permanent, we say, I am this permanent, lasting thing, we're always going to be disappointed. But when we can define ourselves as awareness can always be there. And so we are not disappointed in the same way. I talked last week about the point of practice being found in the third noble truth. The end of craving conditions the end of suffering. And I see this. I see third path as a partial fulfillment of the third noble truth. All craving has not dropped away, but a large portion of it has dropped away, and so a large portion of your dukkha drops away too. When you're not always craving for solidity and stability, and you're not craving for the things that you want and don't want, that's where the peace is found. That's where the lasting peace is found. If you are awareness, you can just be aware of something that is pleasant or unpleasant equally. You're not moved to craving and aversion in the same way, and that's peace. And so the consequences in terms of your lived experience might be very large at this point. If you can understand yourself as simply awareness, nothing that happens to this body or mind is personal. You might have preferences, or you will have preferences, but it's not personal. It can all be born. And so your life changes quite a bit. That's what I would say about that. Finally, we have enlightenment, which my understanding of this is a bit hazy, but I will offer you what I can. And at this point, what's left is, I like to think of it, if the kind of greater sense of self dropped away or died in third path, what's left is a little ghost of that self. Right? There's a little something left. And what occurs when enlightenment arises is another way of viewing the world. So there was the way of viewing the world as you are a separate self, and there was a way of viewing the world as you are awareness. The way I understand enlightenment is an enlightened mind would understand themselves as being both awareness and everything in awareness. So everything, the whole universe. And my understanding of that is that's probably got a lot more heart to it. So whereas with third path, you were kind of you are not any of it. If you are all of it, you have more caring about what's going on in this body or that body. And so you're more engaged with the world and more caring. The five remaining fetters that pass away with enlightenment are the passion for existence and the passion for existence in the world of form, and the passion for existence in the world of the formless, which is basically a kind of attachment to particular mind states that are found in jhana. There's conceit, mana, which is usually talked about as the understanding that I am better than someone else, or I am equal to someone else, or comparisons of that nature. There's restlessness, udacha, and finally ignorance, avijja, which is the root of all, I guess the root of all evil, I guess, in Buddhism. It's not understanding the Dhamma correctly, or not understanding the Four Noble Truths correctly. And at this point, dukkha is gone. Dukkha is entirely gone. There is no suffering. And I don't know what life would be like to have that kind of mind. I imagine it would be quite nice. I don't know that I know anyone who is enlightened. The Dalai Lama is said to be enlightened. I've never met him, but I know a few people who have, and he's universally described as having some kind of happiness force field. He just radiates happiness. He's often talked about as somebody who makes everyone feel seen, even if he walks into a room with 100 people. And I must imagine that a mind like that is just a great force for good in the world. So I was looking for descriptions of what that might be like. I have a poem that will maybe give a flavor of what it's like. This is the Eternal Song by Ajashanti. I am the aware presence. Everything in existence is an expression of what I am. I am the clearness in the sky, the infinite in space, the wetness in water, the sweetness in sugar. In what I am, there is no knowledge of what I am. I am beyond the knowledge of what I am. Both the known and the unknown are expressions of what I am. I am the seeker and the sought, the finding and the losing, the silence and the sound. I am the joy within happiness, the tears within sorrow, the presence within stillness, the awareness within sleep. Both illusion and enlightenment, bondage and freedom, heaven and earth, exist within what I am. In what I most essentially am, I am dissolved into what I have always been. I am the awareness of each moment, the consciousness of all content, the presence within all things. I am the stability within mountains, the heat within fire, the intimacy within love. In realizing what I am, I come to peace within myself. Realizing that I am not hidden, but ever present, I come to rest within myself. Realizing what I am cannot be gained nor lost. I naturally stop seeking for what I already am. Realizing that all forms are expressions of myself, a great and silent love perfumes each moment. I am the faceless wearing all faces. I am the stillness within movement. I am the movement within stillness. I am the emptiness within all forms. I am the fullness within emptiness. I am here and now, everything, and nothingness too. So that's the end of the model as it's traditionally taught. I will say, though, there are a couple of teachers that I've heard or read that claim to be enlightened that I would kind of buy that claim. And two of them that I know who have spoken about this have said that there's more after full enlightenment. I don't know what that might be, but perhaps that's not the complete end. So I wanted to offer this series of classes or talks for two reasons. I thought it might be helpful to kind of contextualize your path. So we're all somewhere along this path, and I think it's helpful to have an idea of kind of where you've been and where you're going and where you are. I had one other poem kind of in relation to the path that I wanted to share. This is one of the Therigatha, the poems from the early Buddhist nuns. This is Sakula. I was living at home when I heard the Buddhist teaching from a monk, and I saw the Dhamma perfectly, new freedom, the eternal state. Who I was then left behind son and daughter, wealth and grain, and after cutting off my hair, I went forth to homelessness. I trained myself. I developed the straight path. I gave up excitement and anger, together with all that fouls the heart. I ordained as a nun. I remembered former lives. The eye that sees the invisible was clear, spotless, and developed. I saw my experience as if they were not my own, born from a cause, destined to disappear. I got rid of all that fouls the heart. I am cool, free. I saw my experiences as if they were not my own, born from a cause, destined to disappear. I got rid of all that fouls the heart. I am cool, free. So the last reason I wanted to give these talks was I wanted to kind of demystify the path. I know when I first started learning about enlightenment, it seemed metaphorical to me, or it seemed like maybe something that happened in the Buddhist time and wasn't particularly relevant to me. But that's not the case. It's not at all metaphorical. It's a very mechanical process. It's just the Dhamma is a series of steps, a series of things for you to do to reach enlightenment. And if one thing is clear to me, it's that enlightenment is available to all of us. There's nothing about me or any of you in terms of your abilities or your character or anything like that. There's nothing that prevents us from reaching enlightenment. And to me, it doesn't really make sense to orient your life in any other direction. Like it's very good to have a full life with family and friends and doing fun things and that sort of thing, but none of those are going to lead to lasting happiness. And once you understand that, once you understand the Dhamma, it doesn't make sense to do anything to kind of get in the way of your practice like that. The benefits to enlightenment are so great. The complete end of suffering. I don't think you can possibly state how much value that is. The benefits are so great, and that the only way we can realistically move in that direction is to practice. So I hope this was of some inspiration to you, or perhaps value in that way. So we'll close with the Buddha's very last words on his deathbed from the Maha Parinibbana Sutta. Strive with earnestness. Thank you all.